Hi everybody, Richard Thomas here again, Artificial Lawyer TV. Today we're doing a product walkthrough with RegTech company APIAX. Joining us is Alan, who's going to tell us a bit more about it and give us a bit of a walkthrough on what is a rules-based system. Alan, take it away.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks very much. Let me put the slides up. So APIAX founded in 2017 in Zurich, so a Swiss company that rapidly expanding across the world now with offices in London, Lisbon, and most recently Singapore. And really what we try and do is completely change the way that compliance is done, moving it into a much more digital process and away from the paper-based way of working at the moment. So we have a use case here. So if we think about the real people having to work under these burdens, and here we have a relationship manager based in Taiwan, and he has a prospective client out in India. The current way of working would be either to contact a lawyer in India to find out if they're able to work there, or refer to their existing policy documentation, which they've obtained maybe months or years ago. But if I stop sharing there and switch over to my other screen. So what Jimmy has to do in this scenario is log on to, in this case, the APIAX portal. So it's web-based. There's no installation. There's no integration required. He can just open this up in his web browser. This can be branded. It can be housed on the firm's internal website. We don't really mind, but for this purposes, it's the APIAX version. And then we just walk through a series of questions. So here we're going to talk about discretionary. Well, we can talk about discretionary asset management. We have a whole range of options to choose from. Actually, let's pick custody and payment services. And his client we know is a natural person, so we're just going to walk through the questionnaire. And here is where we have the different jurisdictions in play. All of these will be India. Very simple to use from a user's point of view. If we get to the point, we can actually bake in some knowledge into the system. So we know we don't have a license for India, for example. So that's the only option available to us here. How is the communication taking place? Well, here we can have some definitions. If we're not quite sure what's permitted and what's not permitted, we can put the definitions in there, but obviously it's going to be a physical meeting. And then we're going to look at opening a bank account. Why not? That would be a good idea. And then we should be presented with the results. So it's taken just a few clicks for us to get to an outcome. So we haven't had to talk to a lawyer. We haven't had to raise a compliance process. We certainly haven't had to go and read any manuals. And now we know exactly what we can do with this client in this scenario. Here we're told we're allowed to do everything. So that's very nice. If there are any particular points we need to be aware of, then we have those here. We don't present everything on screen in one go. We try and make sure that we get to the answer first, and then if there's any deeper content required, we have the ability to access that. And here we have some restrictions and some remarks that that Jimmy has to be aware of in this scenario. So, and then we have some ancillary tasks that he may wish to undertake. And again, we have all the results here that he wants to see. Now, if Jimmy might be curious as to whether he's better off if he can remain in Taiwan in this instance. And here all he has to do is change a few things. And he can change as much as he wants. And I guess this is going to be a phone video conference rather than a physical meeting. And then we add this new scenario, and what we can do is we can compare them side by side. So this is a relatively straightforward scenario as it happens, but you can imagine if some of the things weren't allowed on site with the client and some things were allowed cross-border, then that might be a way for Jimmy to determine what's the best course of action in order to conduct this meeting. So.
Gotcha. So where do you get this effectively legal advice from? Where is it coming from?
Yes, exactly. So we partner with law firms and advisory firms. So the content here that you can see is provided by Allen and Overy, and this is content that they're producing anyway. And all we're doing is providing that content in a far more accessible way. So from our customers' point of view, they know they can trust the content because it's coming from top tier advisory firms. And if we need to really further provide evidence of that, we can always, we could badge this as the particular, there's a white label option for the law firm to say, look, this is really our advice because it's got our logo on it if we really wanted to do that. So we want to make sure that the content is completely trustworthy.
Right. So if a client came to you directly, the legal information you have could have been provided by different law firms. You've kind of
Yes, that's right.
organized it. But
Exactly, yeah.
what's in it for the law firm? Because the law firms are effectively giving you information and they're not getting any benefit from it, but the clients are using your system.
Yes. So, well, I think the law firms are getting a great deal of benefit from this. So, at the moment, the traditional way of contacting a law firm is when you have a particular regulatory issue, you go to the law firm and you ask for the advice, and the law firm kind of has to wait for that to happen. Here, we can switch that around a little bit and the law firm can proactively sell the advice because it can do that in a much more easy to obtain way, so that there's no kind of way for traditionally law firms might build a website, put some PDFs on there, and try and sell the content that way. That's okay to a certain extent, but it doesn't make it very user friendly. Here we have a much more user friendly way for this content to be represented, and a much more and then it makes it very easy to distribute that content amongst the organization that's bought the content. So from the law firm's point of view, they're now selling on a one-to-many footing rather than kind of on a one-to-one footing.
Yeah, that makes sense. But so just so it can be clear, so a client would come to, let's say, A&O's website. You will have made a page or some kind of entry point on their website with them, and the information will only be from A&O. Or is it a scenario where people will come to your website detached from any particular law firm, and the information you're providing is generated by lots of different law firms? I mean, if you see what I mean.
I do see what you mean. Yes. So we can do both of those. So we could have just content from a law firm digitized for their clients on their website. So it can be client confidential. It can have very sensitive information in there if necessary, and we would make sure all the security is behind that. Very much so. So that from a law firm's point of view, they're making it a lot deeper than we might have otherwise. If it's just on the APIAX website, then yes, it's the other scenario where me as maybe a smaller asset manager, let's say, who doesn't want to go to a top tier law firm and spend tens of thousands of pounds on legal advice, comes to us, finds that we have a bit more choice at a more kind of reasonable rate, let's say. And actually we do it on a subscription basis. So as that changes over time, as that legal advice changes over time, that content is updated in real time for them as part of the subscription. So they, coming at it from that point of view, they don't need like the full bells and whistles of all the legal advice. They just need to make sure they're discharging their regulatory obligations in a cross-border scenario, let's say, typically.
But the law firms are happy to provide you with that information, and the you to then effectively resell it to people who are not their clients.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
They don't mind that.
No, because they see that as a development of their business, or it's a way to.
How does the law firm build a relationship with the client who's just come to your website if it's not on their own website? For example, each time you click on a piece of information, does it say this piece of information was provided by Allen and Overy? I mean, how does the end client know that?
They will know that because at the start of our relationship with them, so they will come along to us and say, I need cross-border rules for 20 countries. And we will say, great, your content provider for this will be Allen and Overy. And that's the content that you'll be buying. So they know that's there. And then what we find is if they then have a deeper issue related to that content, they can then go to the law firm or the advisory firm that sits behind that content with their.
So you explicitly tell each client where
Mm.
the legal information is coming from.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, you know that because otherwise it didn't make sense otherwise, because
Yeah,
I
sure.
can't imagine Alan Overy handing over their intellectual property for nothing.
No.
Okay, got you. Last question. What is this using? I think we mentioned at the beginning, this is rules based. This isn't an NLP system. You're not just trawling through thousands of pages of regulations. It's a one-to-one rules based system.
Yes, exactly. So we are very careful that we take the source content is a fairly traditional piece of legal advice written in a memorandum or some sort of jurisdictional survey or whatever it may be. That's produced in the way that you might see it these days. We're very careful in digitizing that, and the way we do that is we use actual people. So we have a team of regulatory engineers in-house who are very experienced with handling this content, also very happy working in a digital environment. So we very carefully map that into our decision trees, into our rule sets, and so that when you have an outcome like provide service, we know exactly what that means in terms of what it related to in the core content. And then what the actual technology is doing is it's taking any complexity really that we've put in as a query, so that will be multi-jurisdiction, multi-service, product types, entity types, client types, whatever the complexity is that's added into the mix. The technology is mashing all of those rule sets together, weighing them up, and then determining what the correct outcome is given all the different inputs. So it's a combination of old-fashioned humans and the expertise that we need to be able to generate the digital rule sets, and then the technology is really processing all of that kind of instantaneously, as you've seen.
Gotcha. Thanks very much, Alan. Very interesting. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Richard.